Sort of like suffocating under the reins of Satan's chains. And I maintain it's a damn shame how we all fall like raindrops on brick walls and simply fade away into the memories of yesterday. And when there's no one left to remember, the human race shall cast away inside this vast abyss of disarray. Instantly, viciously, and in a moment's notice become history. And while this anxiety is piling high in me, I am screaming in silence on the outside.
Hey, welcome to the Crazy Monkey New Mexico podcast. This is your host, Nathan Wagar. And it's 3 a.m. at the time of this recording, and I can't sleep. So, in typical Nathan fashion, I am perusing YouTube, checking out the Krav Maga gun disarm videos while I sip on my Kroger brand pumpkin eggnog. And I was actually going to save this topic for later. There were a couple other things that I had wanted to talk about first. But in this case, I'm going to make an exception. And I'm going to pick on Krav tonight just because, just like the Cali and Silat and a lot of those Filipino martial arts are kind of the self-proclaimed experts on edged weapon fighting. Krav is kind of, it sort of is the only go-to, so to speak, martial art that covers gun disarms. And I personally think that the way most people train gun disarms is dangerous. And here's why. Jiu-Jitsu kind of, hold on, let me take a sip real quick. Cool. Alright, Jiu-Jitsu proved its effectiveness by getting control of the body and then working down to the bigger joints and then the smaller joints. So Aikido and all that doesn't really, a lot of the throws and joint locks don't work because you don't have control over the body first. So there's a lot of moves where you have to distract the opponent with a strike or what have you and grab the fist out of the air or grab the joint at the wrist and then effect a throw. And the problem with that is that the other person has their entire body to counteract that small joint that you have control of. So you're not controlling him, you just have a grip. Okay. Now the thing is, if it doesn't work for Aikido, a gun disarm that is essentially Aikido with a gun isn't going to work either. And what do I mean by that? Well, a lot of gun disarms are predicated around moving out of the line of fire, and that's good. Okay, they usually smack the gun out of the way. They grab the gun, okay, with their hand as they move themselves out of the line of the fire into the opposite direction, and that's a good thing. Here's the problem. When you control the gun like that with your hand, or when you grab for the gun like that, okay, they're going to retract it. Or you have the problem of you're smacking the gun one way just so you can grab it the other way because they're attempting an actual grab. Either way, you're trying to do a fine motor skill in a high stress kind of scenario. Your heart rate is going and you're expected to grab the pistol and move out of the line of fire at the same time. And then you're going to effect a kind of a question mark. My buddy Cliff Byerly calls it a question mark gun disarm, where you question mark the gun inward, so it goes against the thumb toward the center line, and then you can rip the gun away. That's cool. I use the question mark technique myself, or a variation of it, but here's the problem. One is, we already mentioned that you're using a fine motor skill of trying to grab the gun itself. Okay. Two is, the person is going to be retracting the gun back. So let's say you grab and it kind of slips, he pulls that gun away, you're done. Or let's say you do get a hold of the gun and you have actual control of it. Let's say he rips it out of your hands, it's over. You are in the line of fire and he's going to squeeze the trigger. Okay. So how do we get around that? Well, my philosophy with all weapons And guns are going to be a little bit different than knives. I actually think they're easier to deal with personally. But the main thing you have to look to do is always to control the weapon bearing arm. And I do not mean the weapon bearing hand. Controlling the gun itself is no different than trying to pluck the hand out of the air and do an Aikido throw. He still has all of his strength to counteract that technique. And then, hold up, taking a sip. And then you have to remember that he's under stress too. Okay, and if you attack, nothing says that that gun's going to smack out of his hand. He might be clamping down, or he might have a two-handed grip, or what have you. Okay, so how do we apply what we know about controlling the weapon-bearing arm? Well, let's look at the arts that are the best at it. You know, we've got hands down Greco. Okay, and we can use that idea from Jiu-Jitsu and grappling of going big to small. Now, there's two considerations we have to keep in mind. One is controlling the weapon-bearing arm, but the other is controlling the line of fire. Okay, so once you get out of the line of fire, you need to control the weapon-bearing arm, and then you need to control the line of fire. Now, going big to small is good, but the thing is if we control the shoulder, which would be optimal, we have less control over the line of fire. And if we control at the gun itself, or the wrist rather, we run into the other problem where we don't control the body. So what's the compromise between those two? We're going to control the elbow. Okay, and so that is kind of the approach that I take. And we'll get to that in just a second. But the final thing that's missing, right, so first, a lot of gun disarms, they grab the weapon itself, and if you miss that weapon or if you slip, it's over. Okay. The other one is they don't have control over the body or the weapon-bearing arm itself. Right? And the other thing is there is not enough pressure. One thing that I have to really hand to Jerry Wetzel's Red Zone Knife Defense is it really kind of opened my eyes to the necessity of strong, aggressive, driving, sagging with your weight styles of pressure when you're controlling that weapon-bearing arm. A lot of it's for the same reason that a lot of trapping techniques in some martial arts don't work. And yet if you look at like hand ties and dirty boxing like we use in the Crazy Monkey Defense program, it's basically trapping, but it's with strong aggressive pressure. It's with, you know, that wrestling head control, and it's done in the proper range. And gun disarms are no different. A lot of people try to essentially do trapping in their gun disarm techniques, and they're just going to retract the weapon and shoot you in the face. So you can try that, but I wouldn't recommend it. So instead, we're going to use these same types of techniques, but we're going to take a different approach. And the way that I like to do that is by getting past the line of fire first, controlling the elbow, okay, and then what I like to do is I like to grab my own clothes around the elbow. And the reason for that is that as he's trying to struggle and get the pistol back, you'll be able to transition to other positions without losing that grip. Because that's the problem with a lot of no-gi grips, is you'll lose control of the gun arm in the struggle. But once I grab my own shirt around that elbow, I can transition to a 2-on-1 or a baseball bat grip or whatever, and I'm not going to lose that original kind of control over his arm. So I get past the line of fire, I control the elbow, I grab my own shirt, and then nearly simultaneously I move to control the line of fire. And all of this is done with extreme aggressive pressure. You know, I was talking with Paul Sharp about this, and he agrees. We've both tested this stuff out with high gear and with live pressure. Once you get past that line of fire and you use that aggressive driving clinch, they don't get the gun back on you. It just doesn't happen. But just in case, we're going to get past the line of fire, control the elbow, control the line of fire nearly simultaneously, but the elbow is primary. I like to grab my own clothes personally, and then we're going to either effect a takedown or go to another control position and effect a disarm. Okay, so something to something that I'd like to say about the disarm itself. I always like to go inward against the thumb. I know that a lot of guns, gun disarms, they like to go against the fingers. You know, so if the guy has his finger in the trigger well, you can kind of bend it outward against his fingers, and you know, you can break his finger or whatever. That's cool. I'm a little dude, and I found that a lot of those disarms just don't work. So what I like to do is I like to use a lot of kind of gross motor figure fours, where it's almost like a Russian. You know, if you've ever seen a Russian figure four where you just kind of weave your fist underneath the other forearm. I like stuff like that where I grab the weapon and do kind of a figure four, and then I just wrench the gun inward toward them against the thumb. One, it's safer to train because it's not going to be pressuring and breaking your partner's index finger or jamming it or causing any issues like that. And two, it's the most high percentage for a little guy because you're going in against the thumb with your whole body weight and with levers. And that's kind of the approach that I like to take. The other one I like to do is, if I can't do it standing up, okay, I will take them to the ground with my control of the arm, and then I will usually step on or press on the gun against the pavement with my knee, and I will just rip upward on the grip, and the gun will just strip right out of their hands. And that's more of a just kind of, you know, gross motor, screw you, little guy, gun disarm. And that's pretty much how I approach the actual disarm itself. Okay, so it's safer to train, and it's more effective if you go inward against the thumb. The final thing that I can't stress this enough. When I developed TARMAC, the main concept behind all of it is distance. Distance and awareness and checking for anomalies and known safety patterns. So you're checking for things that look out of place and responding to it as a potential threat, so that if you do see a person that looks like a potential threat, you're going to be looking at the hands for pre-assault cues. You know, jackknife of the elbow, centerline index of the thumb, because that's how you have to grab a weapon, things like that. And so at that jackknife of the elbow, as he's reaching into the waist area, you would attack or run depending on your distance, okay, at that point. So that if the person does draw, they're drawing under pressure. They are attempting to aim under pressure. And usually you can latch onto that elbow while they're still drawing the weapon. If he's already pointing the weapon at you, that's sort of a worst case scenario, kind of, you really messed up. And you know, the hostage kind of situations, they almost never happen. I don't even know how you would find yourself in that, because if he's trying to kill you, he's going to kill you. And if he's trying to get your money, he's going to be facing you. But either way, not many people are going to stick you on your knees and shove a gun in your face. Or the back of your head, rather. And if they do, you messed up way, way, way down the line. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't train that stuff. But what I am saying is, that is worst case scenario. You need to attack on the cue. Okay? Get control of the elbow. Effect a takedown or a control, and then what I like to do, like personally, I like to grab my own clothes over the arm. So after I get control of the elbow by grabbing my own clothes, I actually like to go to a baseball bat grip and grab clothes over the weapon. And I know it's a little bit hard to visualize when I'm saying it, but I'm actually going to be working, or releasing, sorry, a gun disarm curriculum that I've been working on with the Secret Service guys out here. And then I've been using them as test dummies because they're all like 6 feet tall and they weigh like 200 pounds. So they're good test dummies for me to use as I'm developing this stuff. But I like to basically grab my own clothes or their clothes over the weapon as I have control over it, so that it forms a little lever. And then from there I can just rip the gun and question mark it in toward them. And then whatever you want to do is a takedown. I usually like to step on their foot and just slam into them, and then they just kind of fall. But that's kind of my approach to it. The things that are missing is that once you get past the line of fire, which is good, and I'm not saying you can't grab the gun, but I'm saying if you grab the gun, you need to be crashing in toward the elbow. You have to. One is because that's how you're going to control the arm. And two, if you go for the elbow and he tries to retract the gun, you're still going to get control of the arm and be out of the line of fire. But if you go for the gun itself, one, he can retract it, and two, if you see the cue and you're running and attacking him on the cue to crash into him, you will slow down if you have to try and find and grab the pistol as he's drawing it. And you don't necessarily know how he's going to do it. Okay? And then once you get control of that elbow, I like to grab my own shirt so it gives me a lot of security. I can transition to other positions and still have control of his arm as I'm controlling the line of fire at that point. And then I effect either a takedown or a gross motor kind of figure four style strip that works against the thumb going inwards always. There's some good stuff being done by a guy named Southnark, Craig Douglas. All right, and I encourage you, if you doubt any of this stuff, I want you to watch, because I have watched every single one of those ECQC events, the Extreme Close Quarters Combat, I want to say it stands for. I could be wrong on that, so forgive me if I am. But watch those, and watch every single one of the situations, especially the 2-on-1 evolutions, because they always seem to end up in a tie-up position where one guy has like one or two guys grabbing onto the weapon, and they always affect the gun. They try to go for the gun disarm, and it doesn't work. The guy is just death locked on that pistol. Okay? If your gun disarm will not work against that, get rid of it. Period. If you can't teach it to a woman that weighs 120, 130 pounds, get rid of it. Period. Because you owe your clients better than that. Outside of that, I mean, keep in mind, gun disarms, I think they're possible. I think they're more likely. I think you're more likely to be successful with a gun disarm than you are with a knife, to be perfectly honest. Because the pistol's like a big lever, okay? The knife, you can't grab it. All right. And the only knife program I recommend, by the way, is Red Zone. And Red Zone was a huge influence on the gun disarm curriculum that I'm currently working. But I'll tell you right now, if you go for that gun disarm, you need to commit. You have to commit. Okay? There needs to be extreme forward pressure. If he gets that pistol out and points it at you, doesn't matter, you keep going because you already crossed that line. I call it the yellow light rule. So there's going to be a point where you see that pre-assault cue. His elbow's jackknifing, his thumb index goes in toward the center line. You see it. And it's like the yellow light, when that yellow light goes off at a certain time, and you could go either way. You could run it, or you could try and stop. Okay, you need to make a decision. Usually it's around 15 feet, we've found. Okay, and Cliff Byerly, who's a police buddy of mine that used to work South Central, he agrees it's around 15 feet that you should go toward the man that's pulling the weapon as opposed to away, because you're likely to get shot in the back. But once you go, you do not stop until that gun is out of their hands. And if you get control of the gun, do not try to rack and clear it or clear the jam or anything like that. Knock them on the ground and run. That's it. That's it. My favorite from a gun disarm, because of the tie-on position I'm usually in, I like to step on the foot and just slam into him. Can it be an ankle break? Yes. Yes, it can. It really does work. But I just use it as a ghetto takedown. And then I run. Or just take the gun and just start beating them with it and then run. But you need to get away. You need to have them distracted so that you can run in the opposite direction. Because I'm telling you, sometimes like cholos, they don't even load the ammo right. So you have you have no, or they might have like the wrong ammunition, so you have no idea what's going to happen with somebody else's weapon. Don't even do it. Use it as a blunt force trauma weapon and just bash them and run. That's it. Okay, so I am working on this gun disarm curriculum. I will be releasing it to kind of show my take. Honestly, because of this idea of pressure, I could teach a good wrestler or judo guy how to disarm a gun effectively far faster than I could train a Krav Maga specialist or most other martial artists. Because the judo and the Greco guys get past that line of fire, and action's always faster than reaction. So you have a really good chance, especially if you like confuse them with some stupid question, get their mind thinking about something, and at that moment you attack. Okay, you have a good chance of getting out of that line of fire, but if you don't have a concept of pressure, you're probably not going to survive that situation. And it's really sad. I actually had posted a video about Krav gun disarms, and I won't name the name of the instructor, but one of our guys actually pointed out that like more than one of it was some guys taking an instructor course, and they were doing these cool guy gun disarms, and one of our guys pointed out that more than one of the people in that video were dead. Now, I didn't ask how they died, but I mean, it's just, you got to be careful with stuff like this. Okay. Don't grab the gun itself unless you're also going to go to control the elbow. So move past the line of fire, control the elbow. If you do grab the gun, do it as you're moving in to control the elbow. That's fine. As long as you're crossing that distance with that aggressive forward pressure, you can do that. And there's a lot of different ways to take a guy down or control the elbow. I have my ways that I'll show at some point in the future. You know, judo guys, sambo guys, all those, they'll have their favorites, and as long as you follow these concepts, it'll work. But forward pressure and use figure 4 levers to deal with those hands, because you need to be able to break a strong grip. Okay, so that's my thought. That's my thought process on kind of pistol disarms. It's no disrespect to Krav, although I do like to pick on Krav. I know Krav. But those are my thoughts on the issue. It's very similar to how I approach knives. Control that weapon-bearing arm before you do anything else. All right, and attack on the cue. So stay safe, guys. I hope this podcast was helpful in at least kind of explaining where I'm coming from and my thought process on this topic. And I hope you learned something. All right, so take care, guys, and stay safe.
Cannibals, mechanical mammals with ammo wearing camo. Their mind is so narrow that the destruction is the only scenario. Straight to the burial, bombs are dropping from aerials. The motivations are the only compensations of materials. And this planet we've attacked with our habits is in the status state, been falling from grace since we've inhabited. Such a disgrace, we became a race of complacent, ungrateful and wasteful,